All right, good evening, Hampstead. Tonight is Tuesday, November 23rd, 2021. We're here for the school board meeting. And Melissa, would you mind calling the order?
Jason Giard.
Here.
Caitlin Parnell.
Here.
David Smith.
Here.
Megan Malcolm.
Here.
Erin Pellegrini.
Here.
And also seated at the board table is CFO Jeff Dowd, and joining us by teleconference is Superintendent of Schools Robert Thompson. Bob, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
All right. And if you wouldn't mind standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States
Of the United States of America.
and to the republic for which it stands,
For which
one nation,
under
God,
under God, indivisible.
justice
with
for all.
All right, thank you. Board members, in front of you, you'll have a set of meeting minutes from the November 9th regular meeting. I want to take a moment to read over those, and I'll be looking for a motion to accept with or without discussion.
I'll make the motion to approve the meeting minutes from the regular meeting on November 9th, 2021.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All approved?
Thank you.
Unanimous? Thank you. And I believe, Melissa, there's no public comments.
That's correct. There are no public comments tonight.
All right. Next, we're going to move on to the school highlights. Mr. Thompson, are you going to be reading over those?
Yes, I am. Just give me 1 second. So Mrs. Denola was not able to make the meeting tonight. So I just wanted to present a few highlights from the middle school. So the Hampstead PTSA is again sponsoring the PTSA Reflections Art Program competition. Children in grades pre-K to grade 8 are encouraged to enter works of art in several different categories built around the theme of I Will Change the World By. And thank you to Denise Myers and Gina Conti for co-chairing this opportunity for our young artists. Additionally, Pinkerton Academy is offering free beginning strings lessons for any student currently enrolled in grades 5 through 12. This is a great opportunity for HMS students to explore the opportunities of orchestral instruments. Also of note, on Wednesday, November 10th, the HMS school community joined together in the gymnasium for an annual Veterans Day assembly. Student speakers, along with the posting of the colors by members of the Hampstead Boy Scout Troop 33, created a solemn and respectful tribute to our living military heroes. Student Resource Officer Stephen Winters was acknowledged for his service as a U.S. Marine, and Mr. Paul Ott for serving in the U.S. Air Force. And additionally, students participated in the VFW Patriots Pen essay competition again this year with their depictions of what is a good American. And thank you to Mrs. Wolf and retired Lieutenant Colonel Stedman for continuing this rich tradition for HMS students. And that concludes the school highlights for the middle school.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. All right. We're going to move into current business. First item is for Mr. Dowd to report out about the 60s Wing Improvement Plan.
Yes, thank you, David. The 60s Wing continues to move on. The paving outside, I think I perhaps mentioned last time, is complete. The cladding, metal cladding is going up outside. If you haven't been by, you can take a look. The work is not progressing quite as quickly as I'd like, but I'm hoping they're going to take some opportunities to try and get that work accelerated when school is out of session the next few days. I know they're going to be on site to start the HVAC. Hopefully tomorrow will be the day that we'll have the system we've installed operable. Because it hasn't been fully installed, we hadn't had it we hadn't had operation at all. We've had the room units in place. So that'll be exciting if we can get that online. Hopefully that'll be online when the students come back on Monday. And we're also expecting the south door, which is the farthest door back facing the trailers. There's going to be a canopy over that entrance, and that's scheduled to be installed this week. Hopefully that'll be able to happen. I know we've had some delays in a number of different areas, and hopefully that's one that they'll be able to complete this weekend. So if not, I'm told that's very, very close to being done. So we continue to inch farther to having that job completed and wrapped up and done. So cost-wise, we're still waiting on final costs, but I'm not told that we've exceeded. In fact, I'm optimistic that we'll be under budget on the project overall, which I think is completely remarkable based on the cycle we find ourselves in between supply problems and this sudden inflation. So that'll be good if we can get that wrapped up. I should have final costs in the next month or so anyway, but even the general contractor doesn't have all of his costs in, his receipts and that sort of thing from his subs. So we continue to be in good shape. We'll be in best shape when that's finished, which is on the horizon.
Questions for Mr. Dowd on 60s wing? Do we have a final date that they're aiming for to be done with?
I think it'll be around Christmas. It'll probably be before that, but I think there are going to be some punch list items. I don't think that some of that stuff they may not be able to do when school's in session, so it's not really an awful lot that's left.
But we are aiming that the first week coming back from the holiday break over Christmas there, that's when they'll be done. Though.
Be done.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, there were talks about they have a trailer contractor's trailer. There's talks about moving that off site in the near future. So to me, that's a good thing.
And do we think that for the December 14th meeting, we'll have a pretty good target of where we're ending with the actuals versus budget?
I think we'll be close enough at that point that all of the major items will be in,
okay.
And that which remains outstanding, they'll have a very good handle on.
Okay.
So I'm hoping that we'll have a good idea there. We may not be down to the dollar, but we'll certainly know that we're on budget, under budget by X amount without
even a range of if we're under budget 10%, 5%, whatever that is. It'd be good just to see where we're landing.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. I'm in agreement.
All right. 2022 bond article discussion.
Yes. So the pricing has come in on the addition and renovation project for the central school at $12,995,000. In your packet, there are actually some schematics, some drawings. And unfortunately, until we have our updated AV system here, the public won't be able to see, but we can post on the website as to what it's going to look like. But I'll point out some things for you quickly. I'm looking at it says proposed main floor plan. It's of the first floor. Some of the differences that are in the plan. One of them, you'll see the inner courtyard has been set up a little bit better to utilize the natural grade and slope of that for outdoor learning areas, so that we don't have to perhaps terrace as much and kind of work with the actual grade. To the right, you'll see a new outdoor area, learning area, which is behind where the preschool is. And that would be the former student drop-off and pickup area. Since we've moved that to the front and it's been pretty effective, there'd be no reason to have that extra spot for cars. Right now, the preschoolers, when they go out, they have to go up and around behind the trailers, or go out another door altogether to get outside, and their area is actually on the far side of the playground from where they are. So this would be a nice opportunity to utilize the space that's there to make it a little bit easier and more convenient for them, have it be safe, fenced in, whether it's a playground area or an outdoor type classroom. We have flexibility in that regard. We also added, if you look at the gym, one of the problems that this plan presented for us is that we're losing a storage trailer, and we really don't have an awful lot of storage in the school as it is. And the storage that we do have that's the greatest amount of storage is over the loft over the kitchen. And it's very difficult and very dangerous to access. It's an area that I prefer not to have people using. So if you look at the gym, we've actually done some calculations. Our architect did some calculations, and we can actually utilize an area that's now by the stage on that wall for storage. So it'll be up and a downstairs for storage there as well. So these aren't major modifications to the plan, just some refining on it. We also eliminated the elevator, which is outside, or was formerly outside where the library and the music room were. It's about a couple $100,000 savings. So, yeah, so that's where it's at. I've been waiting for pricing from the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank on that bond cost to us. So as soon as I have that, I'll share that with the board. Obviously, I'm not happy with where the pricing is. I think we're in a real tough spot right now for pricing because of the somewhat irrational inflationary market. Like month by month, it's shocking how much prices are going up. So it's a lot, but I think it's a very reasonable and safe expectation for the cost of what that project will be. If inflation comes down, then we'll end up well under budget. No guarantees there. Any questions on the plan?
On the plan itself, the inside terrace, we had talked, this looks a little bit, I would say, a little bit more done than what we've talked about in the past. In the past, we said we would take care of this at a later point. So is that still the case, or is the plan right here to do a little bit more terracing, a little bit more, say fancier?
Yeah, I've asked them to leave that as for the final project as an add alternate potentially, but we should have it designed so that we don't have to fight a grade, that we can actually have it designed with the grade in mind that we need to do all that work. And I can check and see what the cost is. I mean, we all know how much hardscaping is. I sometimes think I've gone in the wrong business sometimes. But if you look, the initial thought was that we would do a lot of hardscaping in that area, and if you see where it says outdoor learning area, it's mostly grass or some sort of grass type surface. So I can check with them and see how much is actually tied up in that project. Because my thought was the same as yours. That's something that we can, as long as it's set up, roughed in,
Right.
then we can do the finishes afterwards.
Yeah, that's what my suggestion would be if, with this plan, if we go forward, is that those things that we can take care of with, operational budgets, we do
As we go.
those to reduce the price, because it is a large price tag. I think everybody's, health drops a bit when we hear that it's gone up from what, 9 million last year, 12.5 million now. So you're talking a 30% plus increase due to inflation and supply chain costs.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think those two things, and they may be only, I say only a few $100,000 or whatever it is, but I think we need to look at, what makes sense.
Yeah. I'll see what the actual costs are. I know that initially there was a thought of actually doing terracing and a lot of hardscaping, and that there would be no grass in that area at all. And I said, I just don't see that in the budget at this time.
Yep.
So I think even if you see the gray in the middle,
Yep.
would be asphalt, as opposed to grass or anything like that. But
All right. And I appreciate, looking at where we can take out, 200,000 for, instead of having two elevators, we keep the one that we have.
yeah.
So I think that's, smart. So I was appreciative that you and Mr. Thompson took that out.
And looking at the flow and where the student drop-off and pickup is now, it's working fairly efficiently. We have an elevator in that front area. If we had the pickup as we had initially proposed in the back, then it would make sense to have an elevator back there. But, where the pickup is going to probably permanently move, there's no reason to have it, so.
Yep. Okay. I don't know, any questions on the drawings from anybody? Before we start talking about price and bonds and et cetera, maybe Mr. Thompson, this is a good time for you to provide, what are some of the, ramifications based on, you're the new person to the town, new superintendent, what you've seen in the school and what the impact of not passing this, why do we need this? Because it is a hefty price tag for people to swallow. So if you don't mind just giving us an overview from your perspective now that you've been here for a while.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I know I've shared this in the past, but there's really a couple of areas from an instructional standpoint that concern me. First off, just kindergarten. We still have a part-time kindergarten program and then a pay-to-participate program whereas most schools in the state of New Hampshire, approximately 75%, have moved to a full-time universal kindergarten. We're not there, we're not close to there. The second piece that is concerning is the library instructional space. It's not a library, it's a classroom. And, the library media specialist has done a phenomenal job of providing a really robust program for students. But the space constraints have really made that a challenge. And again, we know how important the library media center is to the overall instructional program of the school. Another piece that we've spoken about is special education programming. We have students coming in that have increased needs that require specially designed instruction through special ed. It becomes difficult to provide those programs. We either can't provide them and a student needs to move to an out-of-district placement, or what ends up happening is we provide instruction in what is in an adequate space, sometimes small instructional spaces without windows. I think those are some of the larger concerns that I have. This isn't just a matter of convenience and having an addition that will provide more space. There is instructional impact as a result of our current building space. And then, the other piece that we're looking at right now in anticipation of next year is moving certain programs onto a cart. For example, our computer technology program is on a cart right now. If we need additional classroom space, we could be looking at additional programming that would have to be more portable. And that really has a major impact when you're talking about classes that just can't provide the same quality instruction if they have to move from place to place every 45 or 50 minutes.
Is that it? No.
I could go on forever, but.
All right. I know I have a lot to say about this, but I don't want to take the mic yet. But anybody?
I have just kind of, I'll go to this first because it goes to what Mr. Thompson just spoke about. We had a safety committee meeting last week that, the safety committee talks about a lot of things, not just building safety, but, our kids and how they're doing. And it certainly came up how much the students are struggling. We've talked about social emotional impacts. We've talked about how that's such a focus this year. And we were talking about Central School and how they only have one counselor. And for the number of kids that are in that building now and the numbers that we're continuing to see, it's really not adequate. And, Dr. Cheney said it would be absolutely great and hugely beneficial to the students to have an additional counselor in the school. And she said, but we don't have space. We don't even have somewhere to put this person. So along with not being able to have universal kindergarten, it's and the impacts of putting some of our unified arts on a cart, we're now really talking about not being able to provide the support that our students need because we literally don't have an empty office to put somebody in. And that really struck me. And when we got the numbers, it's a big number. And we've said forever, the number is going to go up. We have to get this dealt with before it's impacting our kids. And all we're hearing this year is these kids are impacted. The staff is impacted. Like, we're at the point that I'm seeing, at least from the information we're getting, Hempstead has always provided excellent education. What I'm hearing is we are at the point we can't do that anymore for every child. And that's a huge blow to a town that I feel really has supported education for as long as I've been around, including as a student. So this is a big deal. It's a big price tag, but I don't know how we don't do this as a town, how we don't say we have to do this, we have to get it done. I don't know. That's it for me.
I agree with that whole sentiment. I mean, putting art on a cart and putting all these programs on a cart, and everything's just impacting the students now and their learning. And I think one of the things when I was thinking about moving to Hampstead, because unlike a lot of people here, I didn't grow up here, was the schools are amazing. And I think this is really impacting that hugely and affecting the students. So, yeah, the number is hard to swallow for sure, especially, I mean, we don't want our taxes to go up. Taxes are crazy in this town, we all know that. But at least with this, we know where our tax money is going. You know, it's going to the, to the kids. So, and if they're all moving back into town, like most people do, we want them to have a good education.
So I'll say a few things, and some of what I'm going to say may be unpopular as well. Got a bunch of notes here, and let's start off with some of the simpler things. When I look at the central school, pretty passionate about the kids that are going there and what they need. We've talked about the music room where it's currently located, and it's on a stage that gets interrupted by lunch. It gets interrupted by the gym class, so you don't really have a music class for the kids, and that's one reason amongst many that needing that extra music room, or the new music room to replace what's not really, it's really a stage. Then you have the gymnasium that right now, that for a better half of the day is cut in half. So the kids don't have a true gymnasium. They haven't had a true gymnasium for a long time. We have before and after school care that takes up the gym as well. And so there's a lot of programs there that are impacted because we can't use the gym after school for certain reasons because we provide that care. And we should be providing that care. And we should also have that gymnasium for other services and other use. As a parent, never mind a school board member, hearing about possibly having art on a cart, technologies on a cart, who knows what else will go on a cart, it makes me question about sending my children there. I'll say as a parent, I have 2 children that will be going to the central school eventually, not for a few years, but it makes me as a parent question whether or not I take advantage of what some of the programs that are now being sponsored through the state about going to another school system. Because I feel that as a parent, my child might get a better education by not being challenged by not having a proper music room, a proper gymnasium, a proper art room, a proper technology room. And so you talk about your taxes increasing. That means that my taxes, because of the programs at the state level, I can now take those tax dollars and move to a private school or something, and now taxpayers are paying double. That's going to face you in this town in the future because we don't have that adequate education in the coming years. So we want to talk about taxes. Your taxes are going to go up. My taxes are going up. All of our taxes will go up because of that. Then you look at preschool. And, we've begun discussions about, do we need to look at other spaces in the town for our preschool? So moving the preschools to another building somewhere in town. And that means additional cost of transportation. That's also loses synergy of our students, our kids, starting at one school and moving all the way up. That means parents dropping off their preschooler and their kindergartner at 2 different schools. There's so much bad in that. It's infuriating. Then we talk about kindergarten. We're one of the only towns, we're in the bottom 25% that don't offer full K for the entire town. With the plans right now, we may not be able to offer full K for anybody because our population of students coming into the town is getting bigger, and we are pushing it. In the years past, and even this year, we weren't able to provide kindergarten for all the kids that wanted it. So this is already impacting us there, which again, and we're not here to make money, but that's a resource for the town as well, because parents pay for full day kindergarten. And we go about cost. The cost goes up 25, 35, 35%, right, Jeff?
Perhaps,
what
yeah.
the increase this year?
Yeah.
From 9-ish million to 12.5 million.
Yeah.
So you do the math, that's about 35% right there, maybe a little bit more. So these costs are going to go up one way or another. We're going to pay for it one way or another. We're going to pay for it for the school, or we're going to pay for it because parents are going to choose to send their kids out of town, and now we have to pay for our school and for private school for students. So I understand it's a lot of money. I'm not, I got my tax bill just like everybody else, and that's going to continue to creep up. The last piece I'll even bring in, this is another unpopular point that I've brought up in the past, is, you know, we don't, and Ms. Thompson spoke to it, we don't have an adequate space for our special education students. We already have students that have had to go out of district because we don't have the space for them here. We've talked about the cost of that. The cost is huge. We could reduce those costs by bringing them back in, or not sending future students out of the district. Transportation alone, between $70,000 and $100,000 for students that are being transported out of town. That's going to increase as we have more, as our population increases. Our special ed students and other students that need special services is going to increase as well. So just by de facto, we're going to increase that way. Or we can choose to make the investment and keep that in-house. So those are a lot of points right there, and there's probably a lot more. I didn't even talk about how much I love the library yet. But, you know, there's a lot of things going on right now that we're at that pressure cooker. We're at that point, and we want to talk about our taxes staying low. This is one way to do it, and it's an investment, just like anything else. You don't get anything for free. We have to invest. I'll sit here day in and day out for the next 4 months to talk to anybody about this and go over the balance sheet, go over every part of this, walk through the central school during the day, at night, to see what's going on there. But, you know, just can't say it enough. I know I'm passionate about it, but, you know, we owe it to our community. We owe it to our kids, our teachers, our staff, to get this done. And we came really close last year, hoping we have the same turnout and more for this. So. Mic drop. I don't know. Anything in addition to that, anybody? I know we got to talk about cost. So let's talk about that a bit. 12.5 million-ish.
12.9. Well,
12.9.
12.5 if we maybe found some ways to cut, but.
12.9, and hopefully we'll take a little bit out on another review. I mean, again, I can't see us not going forward with it. It's just about how we're going to pay for it. My suggestion is we look at a 15-year bond, and that keeps it around the same price. It costs more, but it's, you know, it doesn't keep our yearly payments over $1 million. It keeps our yearly payments under somewhere around whatever. I don't know. We don't have the numbers yet, Jeff. But
Really, it's dependent on what the projected interest rate is, which I'm hoping is favorable as it has been in the past. But bear in mind that if we get into a market that even if the price doesn't go up, but the interest rate does, it actually has a worse effect than a rising cost in construction. That makes sense?
yeah.
So we're susceptible here to two factors. One is just a typical increase in construction costs. The other is a potential increase in interest rates.
Right. So once we know what the interest rate is, so I mean, I don't know if anybody thinks we should go after 10-year now or 12, 15. If anybody has any opinion to this.
I get pricing.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of looking at a 15. I think it is more responsible of us to, knowing we have a higher cost to deal with, to try to spread it out more. I mean, David, you said, we all know, if you spread out a loan longer, yes, you are paying that some amount extra. But looking at the year-to-year cost for taxpayers, I just think it's better to look at a 15.
Okay.
There is an argument as well in some cases to try and match, and I'm sure for Megan this would ring well, but to try and match the cost with the useful life of the project. And 15 years is still well within the useful life, but a lot closer to the useful life than 10.
You're right.
You know, so kind of
Okay.
paying as you have the benefit of it.
All right. So I don't think we need a vote on this right now or anything. You know, I know we got to get a warrant together for January, but that needs to be done in December. So I just asked Mr. Dowd if for the December 14th meeting that we have a properly reviewed plan with BPS, take out any cost, any other findings that we can, and provide us with what does a 15-year bond look like year over year for us to review and bring forward as a warrant.
Perfect. We'd also discussed, before we get off that topic, on the bond plan, on this plan, we do have the Cove classrooms included. We had talked initially about the possibility of having those classrooms perhaps be part of our operating budget, and even those costs exceeded what the contractors had initially anticipated for that, and it's close to 1.47 million to do that work. 1,450,000 to actually do that work based on where they're projecting now, again, in the inflationary cycle we're in and that sort of thing.
All right,
So
so,
it's included here because it's just not viable.
yeah, and I don't think bringing a warrant, even if it's a majority vote, 50%, for 1.4 million or 1.5 million is fiscally right to do to taxpayers. I don't know if anybody else thinks about that, but you're looking at a pretty good, pretty good chunk of change for 1 year for the voters.
We are, and we're looking at some economies of scale just because of the nature of the project. I mean, it's a steel structure. We have a lot more work going on with the major project itself than we do just as a standalone.
Yep.
Yeah, so it may be a little more efficient to do it that way.
Okay. If there's nothing else for that for right now, we can move on to the budget discussion.
Bob, if you wouldn't mind queuing it up.
So, Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Jeff had asked if you don't mind teeing up the 2022-2023 budget discussion.
Yep, not at all. Just give me 1 second.
So for those that are listening and watching at home, Mr. Thompson, of course, is on the phone, but he's going to be sharing his desktop, and everything that we are speaking to tonight will be shared out. I don't know if it's going to be on the website or via email or whatnot, Bob, but if you want to mention that also.
Yep. Absolutely. Can you see my screen?
You can.
Okay, excellent. So just to start, as David had indicated, everything that we're presenting tonight, including the budget journal, which will give you essentially all of the account lines, we will put on the website. There's a section under school board that already exists for the budget documents that we've already presented. So just give us a couple days, and everything that we present tonight and additional documents will also appear on the website as well. David and I have chatted, and we're also going to hold some conversations with the superintendent where we'll invite the public in if they have any specific questions after they've had an opportunity to review these documents. They may have questions about a specific line. I would be happy to answer those questions or get you an answer to those questions. The goal for us is really to be as transparent as we can around the budget. I'm very proud of the work that our teachers, that our administrators, that our administrative assistants have done in helping to construct this budget. As I've said in the past, this is a zero-based budget. We really looked at every single line and what the needs are for the district, and that's how we constructed the budget that we present tonight. So I just wanted to talk about the goals of our budgeting. So the first is for us to provide ongoing enhancements of the educational program. As you heard me say in the past, we are committed to continuous improvement. Every year we want to be a little bit better than we were the year before. And as you'll see highlighted in what we're about to present, this is a budget that helps to move the educational program forward. This budget also makes some major investments in the educational facilities. I know we talk a lot about the need for the addition at the central school, but we also need to keep and maintain in good working order the physical plant. And this budget creates priority around that. Also, you're going to see one of the goals of this budget is to ensure that we have robust information technology systems that support and strengthen our instructional and operational capabilities. This is even more appropriate in the the times that we're living. And then lastly, to be financial stewards of the community. I've had the opportunity to meet with a number of parents and community members, and they're concerned about that bottom line when they get their tax bill. And I think people are going to see that what we're presenting tonight is really reflective of us taking the time to listen to the community and present something that moves the educational program forward, but keeps in mind, people who are paying their tax bills. And, we're able tonight to present a budget, and I'm going to turn it over to Jeff, that our increases are coming in lower than inflation, and I'm pretty proud of that. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to our CFO, Jeff Dowd, and he'll walk you through some of the budget overview.
Thank you, Bob. So the proposed budget that we have is $31,630,706. And I'm going to compare that to the current budget. However, meaning the 21-22 current budget, the budget season the budget cycle that we're in right now, I'm demonstrating here, showing here, $30,686,283 as our budget number. That does not include the 1.66 million for net or impact to the budget for the renovation project for HCS. So I've taken that out to give sort of a fair, what is our operating budget this year compared to what's proposed for next year. The increase is $944,424, or 3.08%. However, our proposed budget, $31,630,000, includes $270,000, which I've had to budget because we're getting additional funding through federal grants, which we know about. And under gross budgeting, I have to budget that. So that money is an additional $270,000 in the expense side, and it's an additional $270,000 in the revenue side. So that's basically a revenue neutral thing, but I've got to show it. If I exclude that from the budget proposed, our increase is $674,424, or an increase of 2.2%. I haven't listed it here. However, if we want to be realistic about what our total budget was, including the warrant article last year, versus what our total ask is this year, we're actually down 2.2%, 2.21%. When we're looking at the total impact of, again, that total budget versus the proposed budget for the upcoming year.
So, Mr. Dowd, I appreciate that you did that, but I do think that in my opinion on this, when we talk about comparing the budgets, we should show what did we have budgeted this year.
Yep.
And I understand that's a one-time cost over there,
Yep.
but that it was part of our budget this year.
Yep.
So I think it is worth noting, and it's worth highlighting all the great work the team has done. And we're actually, you don't see this happen very often, that a budget is less than the year before.
We're asking for less from our taxpayers.
Right.
Yep. Overall.
I think that's worth communicating out.
Mm-hmm.
I would
footnote
suggest
this.
a revision to this.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else, opinion on that, but I think that's worth highlighting, because when I see 3%, 2.2%, I'm like, okay, that might be what I expected from a taxpayer. It always increases, right? But I think we should be celebrating. We're being fiscal stewards, and it's coming down.
Yep. If that's fair by you, I'd prefer to have that in full disclosure before putting it out there, but I certainly can make that adjustment, because it is in fact what our budget was last year in total. It did include that 166. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next slide, Bob.
Next slide.
So I've gone through here and just highlighted by object code, let's say object category, how our budget has changed. And Bob is going to have a little bit of a different perspective on the budget after this. And what I'm looking at right now, or what we're looking at right now, is strictly how much the budget has increased from in that expense category year over year, regardless of what the source is. Salaries are up $843,000. However, some of that's contractual through our CBAs, and we've also included a portion of the SAU budget there as well. The SAU budget is actually down. It's on the next page. Obviously, that's not part of the budget this year. It's down $438,000 because we've just switched up the accounts a little bit to reflect our consolidated nature. So our group insurance, that 210 object code, our guaranteed maximum rate, which is a budget number that I use as an estimate of what our next year's expense is going to be, was 14.2% for next year. Now, that seems like a lot. However, I will just take a step back and note that the current year, our budget, our actual number is minus 1.3%, I believe. So if you take a 2-year average, you're looking at about a 7% increase. However, that GMR does not mean that's what our actual increase is going to be. It's just what I have to budget. So it's almost $500,000 there. Social Security, FICA has gone up a bit. Employee retirement and teacher retirement, I took a look at both of those calculations, and they looked a bit high in the prior year, so I've taken them down even in light of the increase in salaries. We're still down in those $96,000 for employee and teacher retirement, $47,000. So we're down quite a bit there. Other employee benefits, miscellaneous line up $21,827. Tuition, so this is net tuition. We had a 4.5% increase for our tuition at Pinkerton for our regular education students. We have not seen the enrollments that we had anticipated in the current year, so we were able to bring that down. Even though our cost has gone up 4.5%, our projected enrollment is going down, so that we're able to get the benefit of some cost savings there. When we look at that, it's still up 13,806. The reason for that largely is because a lot of the special programs at Pinkerton have gone up more than 4.5%. Some of them have gone up significantly higher than that amount, which is not untypical. Some of the programs are very intensive there. Still a good value to the district. So overall, it's only $13,000 difference there, but those are the two drivers. Books and info resources, that's down $169,000. That's really the result of some curriculum initiatives, which Bob will be able to talk about a little bit more in the next session. Professional services, we're up $91,000 there. A lot of that has to do with services that were required on the outside for outside services for our students. Transportation up $82,464. Based on inflation and that sort of thing, that's where I'd anticipate our budget's going to be there. Bob, if you wouldn't mind moving to the next slide, please. And our...
Next slide. Thank you.
Thank you. SAU object code, so that we had gone into this year with that at $438,000. Now that we're a consolidated district, everything has been peppered into the budget, so that's a reduction. It's not really, but it's just a line that's showing a reduction. Software is up $52,000. A lot of that is just based on increases in what we're anticipating from our vendors. Equipment is down $37,708. Rental facilities is up to $20,750. Portion that represents the SAU rent. In fact, a large portion of that is the SAU rent. Another category, just to capture miscellaneous items, $23,241. Our fund transfers are up $270,000, as we had discussed. And our repair and maintenance is down $189,145. So you can see that the total major factors there are $944,424. If we looked at this and included that $1.66 million, our repair and maintenance line would be down like $1.8 million overall. So, and our actual budget would be lower, about $715,000. So I can make the adjustments if we're okay with that as a board. If you're okay with that as a board, for that to be the perspective and show it and footnote it.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I agree with footnoting it just so that it's clear.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the budget, that's the overview, and that's the specific general drivers behind the budget. Bob has brought with him a new format, and he's going to be getting into it. And the new format, not a new format, a different format, different perspective. And Bob will talk a little bit about it. Bob, you can advance to the next slide, and I'll just give a primer on it. It is simply a schedule showing
Go to the next one, Bob.
what our additions or what's new to the budget and what's been deleted from the budget. This doesn't account necessarily for cost increases or decreases. This just accounts for things that are new or deleted. So Bob, I'll let you take it away.
All right, Bob, it's over to you.
Great. So thanks, Jeff. Jeff is able to really talk about the major budget drivers. What is new to the budget process this year is we created what we call a new budget, new item spreadsheet. It's really important when you're looking at the overall budget. People want to know, what are the new items that weren't in last year's budget? And then what are the items that were in last year's budget that aren't there anymore? And so what I've done is I've taken the spreadsheet and I've put it into this presentation. We will make the spreadsheet available for the community to see. So we break this down into various major categories, and I'm going to start with personnel. So again, these are new positions that we're asking for. We are looking to hire a new technology assistant. We continue to increase our technology inventory. There is a need for additional support in technology. Right now, our technology department is housed at the middle school, and they are incredibly responsive when need arises at the central school, but they still have to, drive over to the building. We don't have anyone housed there. So the adding of the technology assistant, and this is an all-in number with salary and benefits, is $58,732. And, Caitlin raised a very good point. Right now, we're not exactly sure where we're going to house them. It could be something that we put them out in the trailer. As a tech person, they don't need any instructional space. You'll see a reduction of $3,857 in stipends. So a few years ago, there was a curriculum director. That position was cut, and there were several stipended positions created for teachers. Now that we've brought Nicole Tomaselli on as our Director of 21st Century Learning Assessment and Technology, she has a very strong background in curriculum. So what we're doing is we're looking at restructuring these. I do want to note, though, that it is not our intention to get rid of these positions. We have some really talented teacher leaders that serve in these positions. We would do ourselves a great disservice if we got rid of them. So we're looking to restructure. And what we're going to do is we're going to take some of these stipends and we're going to move them out of the operating budget and we're going to put them into the Title II grant. That is a federal grant that we're allowed to use for professional development. So you'll see an overall increase of $51,000 in the area of personnel. The next slide is student services personnel. So these positions that we're going to talk about are fairly specific to special education. I want to take time to highlight we are going to be incurring an increase of $85,975 to move 6 of our paraeducation positions to full-time. When I came to the district, I was surprised at the number of part-time positions that existed in special education for our paraeducators. When you hire someone as a part-time paraeducator, they are not benefits eligible. And it's really important, particularly given the job market, that we're able to provide benefits for these individuals who are highly dedicated and committed to our schools. So by adding 6 paraeducator positions to full-time, that allows any part-time paraeducator in special education, and I want to make that distinction, to be able to move to full-time. The $85,000 constitutes an increase in the salary, but then also the additional cost of the benefits. Now, to do that, we're also proposing a reduction for $96,529 of 6 paraeducator positions. These are half-time positions. And I want to give Tracy Griffinhagen, our Director of Student Services, a great deal of credit, because what she has done is she's gone through every child's IEP, and she's identified the number of service hours that a child is required to have paraeducator support. She's also gone and anticipated what we believe will be incoming. That could be move-ins, that could be preschool, it could be kindergarten. And she has determined that we have a number of extra positions, and they're currently positions that aren't filled. So we will reduce 6 paraeducator positions, but I want to be very clear with folks, this will not result in a reduction in force for any of our paraeducators. These 6 positions essentially are not filled, and we will not need to fill them. So this really has great benefit because we are able to provide full-time employment to our staff. We're able to reduce these positions, and there is some small amount of cost savings to the district. Moving along, we are looking to increase the occupational therapists at the middle school from a 0.8 to a 1.0 FTE, which is full-time equivalent. This is based upon the IEPs of the incoming students and the need for that service. And then finally, the reading specialist, I want to highlight this as well. So if you look, there's an increase of $89,100 to bring in a certified reading specialist. You'll also see the next line, there is a decrease of $48,000 because in the current budget, we have $48,000 of contracted reading specialist services. So we hire an agency to come in at a premium to provide these services. We are projecting that next year, the need for those reading services are going to increase exponentially. And there is a tremendous amount of cost savings if we're able to hire our own folks. So overall, with the student services personnel, we're looking at a total increase of $54,546. And so I'm going to move through some of these a little bit more quickly. But if we're looking at curriculum at the central school, a big expense that was in the budget last year that we're taking out is the math textbooks, the math curriculum. The district made a significant investment last year in the math curriculum. We're good in math. And you'll see some minor increases. For example, $3,174 for Handwriting Without Tears program. That's a research-based handwriting program that right now the central school has implemented in part, but essentially Dr. Cheney is looking to expand that program as well. And then in terms of curriculum at the middle school, again, there's cost savings because of the math program and the social studies curriculum. And there's an increase for the family and consumer science curriculum. We would be buying a mobile demonstration table. So in sum total, and this is a significant decrease in the area of curriculum of $215,992. Okay, so moving along to information technology, we're going to be expanding our Chromebook distribution to first grade next year, so that's a new expense. Also, you'll see under the middle school, it doesn't look like we're buying technology for the middle school, but the reality is these are new items. The tech department has done an excellent job of creating a technology replacement cycle. So that technology replacement cycle is not going to show up here in the budget because it's an item that reoccurs every single year. And then the other thing that we'll do as a district is we'll make an investment to redesign the school website at a cost of $25,000. Moving on to athletics, we've had a lot of conversation with parents in the fall about the possibility of expanding some of the middle school athletic program. So we've included some money in here to be able to expand the program. I do want to be clear, this does not include all of the cost because I do believe we can absorb, if we move forward with this, we can absorb some of the cost into the general operating budget, specifically when we're talking about a stipend for a coach. And then another category is just building needs. So looking at Hampstead Central School, the nurse, the AEDs, and the CPR equipment needs to be replaced. We're also continuing to purchase new furniture. Some of that is new and some of that is replacement furniture. At the middle school, you'll see a fairly large expense for the paving. And again, this is something that will be done in segments, but that's $78,750. We're looking to purchase a new curtain that would be fire retardant for the middle school, replacing the folding chairs, doing a section of the middle school roof. And so in sum total between the two buildings, you would see an increase of $155,508. So if you look at the sum of the new requests and then you minus the items that are not in this year's budget, we're essentially looking at an increase of $111,989. And with that, I will take any questions that the board might have.
I have a quick question. Looking at the budget drivers, I'm just curious what the asterisk means next to some of the line items.
Oh, sorry, I think that's a carryover. Typically, those are items that we don't have much of any discretion on.
Okay.
So if you look at it, you'll see that salaries,
That
for
makes
example,
sense,
were under
yeah.
CBAs and insurance, CBAs, Social Security, retirement, teacher retirement, et cetera. Good question, though.
I have one comment. Probably have another one after, but for those watching for the first time about this, this was a long process over the last 2-3 months that the board partnered with Mr. Thompson and his team So that's why you'll probably not hear a lot of challenges or a lot of questions, because we've gone through this review a number of times. And Mr. Thompson has been very communicative to us about areas of opportunity as well as cost. And so there's been a lot of discussions about this. But please, board members, if you have questions about anything you saw or heard, please ask.
I don't have any questions. I do really appreciate this kind of new approach of showing us these brand-new expenses or brand-new requests, because there are so many line items, and we know that a lot of them do roll over from year to year. I know the team has gone through and started from zero and built it up. So to see where there were items that, okay, this is brand new, this is a new thing that's not in there every year, I just think it brings a level of understanding, at least for me, that is helpful. So thank you.
All credit to Bob on that one.
Yeah, I'll echo that, you know, this is the third year that I've done this, and this is without a doubt the most comprehensive, transparent, and a lot of inclusion on this. And I know I appreciate now as a taxpayer that I'll be able to view and read any of this going into deliberatives and other sessions. So this is very good news as a taxpayer to see this and understand what's going into this.
I'd like to.
And it's important to note too, David, that we'll put the budget journal online so people can go through line by line. But even as a seasoned educator, that can be information overload sometimes, especially if you're not really familiar with schools. Mm-hmm. Having the new items, it can kind of narrow the search for folks, because typically people want to know what's the bottom line number, right, and then what are the new things that you're asking for. So in addition to the new items list, we'll also give you all of the information so that people who want to go through line by line will be able to do that as well.
Yeah, I just would like to say that I definitely appreciate this. I like that it shows what was removed and what was added in. As someone who gets to look at the vouchers a lot, I had a lot of Post-it notes with, I know, nitpicky little questions that I sent over to both Bob and Jeff, and I feel like some of those comments were listened to, and so I really appreciate that, getting into some of these details of what was removed and what wasn't.
We appreciate the observations. It's helpful to sometimes have a different perspective. So it's important to note too on this, and I'm sure Bob made it abundantly clear, but and this is a great example on this newer or removed schedule, this newer deleted schedule. You'll see 6 para positions to full-time at $85,000 and 6 para positions where we're using that funding for to take those other positions to full-time. You wouldn't really be able to pick that up in a budget report as we have in the past. The 6 para positions are non-positions that are filled at the moment. I don't even think they're not even posted. So there really shouldn't be much concern about any person having a position at stake. It's more just a matter of looking at what our needs are, what we've been able to realistically hire, and what we need to do to be able to attract and retain the best staff that we can. And I think a lot of that has to do with being able to move at least these positions to full-time. So.
The only thing I'll add right now, and I was going to wait to do it later on during correspondence, but I think it's proper to do it here, is we had the benefit a week ago Friday of Caitlin, myself, Mr. Dow, Mr. Thompson meeting with Sean Murphy, chair of the select board, and we talked about areas of opportunity to take out additional cost in the future. And while it's not represented in the budget right now because it's too early to really bake that into a budget operating cost, we did focus on 3 areas that the town as a whole spends a lot of money, and the action from that point was going to be Mr. Dowd starting to partner with Sally to look at 3 prime areas. One is gas, correct? Gas, oil.
Oil.
Yeah, yep. Oil, because we do have quite a large budget item of about $125,000 that we spend on oil for the schools, and as Mr. Murphy had said, there's quite a big budget there for the town as well. So if we can go in there with one contract from 2 different accounts, so we're going to look at doing that in the future. That wouldn't come around till probably next year, but even if it saves a little bit of money, every little penny counts, as we see with inflation and taxes. The next one is with electric, same thing, is that we do go out and get bids on electric. Both the town does that as well as the school does that. So if we can join those contracts in the future, we're going to look at that opportunity. And then the last one is with paving, where the town spends a lot of money on paving every year, somewhere just south of $500,000-ish, somewhere around $500,000 on paving a year. And we're going to be looking to spend somewhere, I forget the number exactly, like $57,000 or $70,000. So we'll probably benefit from that. But these partnerships should be happening, and so I look forward to hopefully this time next year we see what those opportunities are coming as a reality. So, I missed anything, Caitlin?
No, that was it.
All right. So, unless there's any other discussions on the operating budget, on the proposed budget, I mean, we can move on to the next topic. All right, so now we're going to talk about draft warrant articles. Mr. Dowd, you're going to review these, and we may or may not take an action on it, some of the warrants tonight, but definitely by the 14th, or on the 14th.
David, the legal calendar has generally been approved by legal as well, so if you wanted to discuss that, or...
Oh, yeah, so, good point, sorry about that. I did ask for this to be included. So I'm just going to read through a couple dates on the calendar right now for those at home, some important plate times for us as the town, taxpayers, etc. I'm going to start looking at this that there'll be by Tuesday, January 4th, there'll be a public notice posted about the school board budget and bond hearings. On the Friday, January 7th, if there's any citizens petition, bond articles must be submitted. By January 11th, any other citizens petitions for articles must be submitted. I'm going to go down to Tuesday, January 11th, is when we're looking to have the public hearing on bond issues, as well as the public hearing on the proposed budget. So that'll be January 11th, 7 o'clock for the bond, and then following at 7:30 for the proposed budget public hearings. And then the next major date would, let's see, Friday, January 28th is last day of filing period for candidates, as there'll be 2 positions open. And then on Tuesday, February 8th, there'll be a deliberative session, number 1 at 7 p.m. And then Tuesday, March 8th is when the district voting happens. I don't know if there's anything I missed that were major worth mentioning, but those are the major dates that I see before us. So, we do want to talk about what would be there for warrant articles and have some conversation. Mr. Dowd, do you want me to start walking through these and you jump in, or do you?
Yeah,
want to
sure, if
start?
you'd like to, yeah. We've already covered a number of them, which is
Okay.
great.
So we would have Article 1, which would be the election of officers. 2 positions open, 3-year terms each. Article 2 would be for the bond issues for the school addition project, which we know that the cost is just north of $12.5 million, but we'll talk about that on the 14th when we have a better understanding of a 15-year bond incurred cost. Next one would be the operating budget for Article 3. I don't know, Mr. Thompson, I think we'll probably want to take the vote on that on the 14th, just in case there's any more changes between now and then for anything we may take out. So, do you agree with that?
Yeah, that sounds fine.
Okay. Article 4 will be about the capital reserve fund. I would like to have some conversation about this because this is something we've been relying on, and thankfully for the we've had enough in there to take care of the 60s wing this year. It's behooved us to increase that amount from years past, and so we haven't had a discussion on this. I know I have a figure in my head that I would like to recommend, but I'd like to hear from the board members, A, if they think we should go forward with a capital reserve, and if there's any thoughts of cost or what we could propose. And again, just for those at home, this is always that the first $150,000 of anything that's in the surplus at the end of the year goes back to the taxpayers, and that this any number that we come up with would be above that $150,000. So.
I have a question, and Mr. Dowd, if I don't know that you're going to have an exact number off the top of your head. I believe we pretty much depleted the balance through the 60s renovation?
Yeah, we did. We had a little bit of a crossover in terms of the contribution and
Right.
some money coming out, but I should have an idea. If we have an idea what the total project cost is going to be by the next
Yeah.
meeting,
Okay,
I can then, we may not do a full drawdown on what we're authorized to do or what the board has approved from the capital reserve. So that balance will change there as well. Maybe 100,000 possibly. It'd be nice if it was 160.
Safe to say it's pretty low.
No, it would be nice if our project surplus, if our project didn't draw down the full amount that we,
Right.
from the capital reserve, but it's
The
relatively low.
balance is pretty low.
Yeah,
Okay.
500,000, 400,000 would be very helpful to get us back in a good spot.
thank you. I was just asking because, we've kind of built it up for the purpose of, capital reserve is to do capital improvements or capital projects, so, I don't have an exact number in mind, but I certainly think we should put something forward. So, I'm willing to listen to any numbers.
I think that, given the history of voting and how we've had to, be creative to get the, different additions to the school or renovations, we got to build this back up quick. I'm hoping that future boards will also look to do the same thing. And so my suggestion would be for $500,000 for a capital reserve fund warrant article. So again, the first 150,000 goes back to taxpayers. The next 500,000 would be going to this capital reserve fund for capital needs only, and then anything above that would then continue to go back to the taxpayers. So that's my suggestion. I know it's a lot. I'm not, suggesting it's not, but I think that we got to build this up quick, not only for emergency purposes, but I think this is what's going to be the funding vehicle to pay for things in the future. Anybody?
I don't have a problem with that number. I think, always with the surplus, it's dependent on if we have that surplus. So one thing with using a bigger number than we have in some times in the past, we've certainly used that number before. There'll be some messaging to this, I think, so that, as we always say, and remind people, this is not an additional expenditure that we're asking for. This is, and especially for a $500,000 number, but I do think you're right. It's important to have the funds being built up again, so I would support 500,000.
All right, so I don't know if make a motion then that for Article 4 for the Capital Reserve Fund to raise I don't know if I have to read the whole thing or not, but to raise the amount of $500,000 to put forward on the warrant for voters.
I'll second.
Discussion? Take a vote. All in favor?
Sorry.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. And then we have the last article as of right now. Of course, it could always be something that comes up, but Article 5 is what we usually put into to the vote is general acceptance of reports. So I think I'll read this off. Shall the Hampstead School District accept reports of agents, auditors, and committees as written in the 2021 annual report? Majority vote required. This is a typical language, warrant item, so I'll just jump in. I'll make the motion we gotta make a motion for this one to recommend Article 5.
Wait, are we there yet? Don't we do that at
Oh, we do?
Public hearing.
public hearing?
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah.
It's okay.
Never mind. Thanks for keeping me honest. All right. So that's with the warrant articles. I don't know if there's anything more, Jeff or Mr. Thompson, about the warrant articles right now.
No, I don't have anything.
No, nothing for me.
Okay. All right. SAU 55 fund balance distribution. Mr. Dowd?
So SAU 55 as a standalone entity, if you will, as a standalone corporate entity, if you will, no longer exists. However, we still have the fund balance from that, the amount that's left in that account or in that entity. Since Timberlane has left, this board is the governing authority for SAU 55 as a corporate entity, if you will. So what we have is, I have a request, and I've put it up on the screen here. I have a request to distribute the funds remaining in the SAU 55 standalone entity as follows. So before we do anything, we're going to reserve, or Hempstead is going to be able to reserve $95,226 for foreseeable and ongoing or existing liabilities. So that goes to Hempstead right off the bat before we get to any fund balance. The fund balance after that is $241,596, of which the share, the 23.77% share, breaks down to $186,029 for Timberlane and $55,567 for Hempstead. Now, of that amount, we have had an audit complete, and so that is what the final number is approximately. However, with these entities, until they're finally shut down, period, there's always a little bit of trailing activity. So, for example, I had to put a request out to the law firm to have them issue a legal opinion as of 6:30 so that we could close out the books. Not a lot of money; it's like $500, whatever it is. But I expect that would be distributed, like that would be allocated to each entity. So even though the amount of $186,029 would be Timberlane's share of the fund balance, it would be that less any incidental expenses associated with the wind down going to them. And then we would get the 567 less anything allocated to us incidental to the wind down, and then the 95,000 we would hang on to cover our future liabilities. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to address them. And if not, I would just ask that the board authorize the distribution of SAU 55 remaining proceeds as presented at the November 23rd meeting, less any incidental expenses, any incidental wind down expenses.
Do we have any concern that future liabilities would exceed 95,000?
We do. We have, I guess, the benefit that they may not reach that amount at all either. So all we can do basically is to take a look and say we don't know what we have with certainty, right? Just to look at the actuarial tables of what we have, and that's what we've done. We have some employees, some trailing employees who receive some health insurance benefits, health reimbursement or health coverage benefits, basically. We've taken all those employees, we've looked at their actuarial life expectancy, and we've carried out what that amount is to their life expectancy on average. So based on the actuarial tables, we try and mitigate as much risk as we can, but that risk does exist to a degree. If we have anything that's major that comes up, a lawsuit or something like that, that would not be part of that 95,000.
My question is, how is this being tracked? What do you use to track this, to understand where we are year after year, to know that we're tracking positively or negatively? Because I could imagine that on either side of this, for the 95,000, if at the end of the day it's only 70,000, we would then have to do the same split.
No.
We would not.
No.
Okay.
No, and that's the thing. At the end of the day, I don't know that we're going to want to go to Timberlane in 10 years and say, hey, you exceeded the allowance that we had to cover these liabilities, cough it up, or that we go to them in 10 years and say the liabilities have prematurely ended and we have a balance to give to you. It's just based on the actuarial tables and what we know.
So this essentially, barring any lawsuits,
Yep.
would sever this is the last transaction we would have to have with Timberlane.
Correct. Knock wood.
Okay.
I hope.
Any other questions, or does anybody want to make the motion?
I don't think I have any other questions.
All right, I'll make the motion to accept, I forget the wording, so I'm going to probably butcher this pretty well, but to accept the numbers provided at the November 23rd board meeting to retain $95,226 for future liabilities and to pay out to Timberlane $186,029 and keep $55,567 for Hampstead's share.
Less any allocated wind down cost.
Yes, less any allocated line item cost.
Well done.
Get that one?
Got it. Thank you.
I'll second it.
And a
Thank you.
second by Mr. Giard. Any other questions? Probably one of my happiest votes, so all that want to vote in favor? All right,
Thank you.
unanimous. Thank you very much, Mr. Dowd.
I can't wait to get that check out the door.
I don't, no, I'm kidding. I wish them the best, I do.
Yep.
All right. So next one, board members, we have one policy for first reading. This is on the ACE non-discrimination on the basis of handicap disability. And I don't know if someone from the policy committee would like to provide an overview.
I can provide an overview.
There you go, Mr. Thompson.
So this is a policy that was repealed in 2010. And essentially the purpose of the policy is to make parents aware that they, if they have a child, as stated in the policy, with a handicap or disability, they are provided all the necessary procedural safeguards as required by law. So essentially procedural safeguards are the rules and regulations in special education in 504 that protects the rights of parents. And it is incumbent upon the district to make these procedural safeguards available to families. This policy was repealed in 2010. In 2017, there were major revisions to New Hampshire's rules and procedures for special education. And in those procedural changes, their districts are required to have this as a policy. So essentially what we're doing is we are ensuring that our policies match what is legally required or required through regulation, and that's the case with ACE.
Okay. Any questions? I believe we have to vote to approve first reading, correct? All right, so looking for a motion to accept first reading of policy ACE.
So moved.
Moved by Caitlin, seconded by Mr. Giard. Any discussions? All approved? All right, unanimous. Thank you. All right, board comments, correspondence. Again, I'll start to my left to Jason.
I'm all set tonight.
Caitlin?
As you mentioned, I attended the meeting with Mr. Murphy at the SAU with Mr. Thompson and Mr. Dowd and Mr. Smith, so that was I felt like a good meeting. And then also last week I attended the safety committee meeting, which was actually our first one since I think we figured out January of 2020. So we were able to meet again and really good discussion, and we set out some goals for the district over the next year as far as safety and learning. So that's it.
I got nothing. Megan?
Nothing.
I think I will just add that I volunteered at the vaccine clinic for the kids. I think there were, correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, there were probably about 140 to 160 kids that came or were registered anyway. It was
175.
It went really smooth. Few tears, but not too bad. And it went really smoothly, and it was well orchestrated, and I think it went really well. So.
Thank you. All right, moving on to consent agenda, Mr. Thompson.
Yes, in your board packet, you will find a personnel report. I'm asking for the board to give consideration to the approval of 2 professional positions. The first is Hsdsb Krovy. She will be the new technology teacher at the Hampstead Central School. And the second one is Jennifer Green. She will be an elementary school teacher on a 1-year assignment at the Hampstead Central School.
Give us a moment, Mr. Thompson, just reading over the packet.
Take your time.
So it looks like a lot of strong recommendations here. Be looking for a motion to accept the nominations for Hsdsb Krovy for the technology integration teacher and for Jennifer Green for the HCS elementary school teacher for a 1-year assignment.
So moved.
That is correct.
Got
I'll second it.
a motion from Ms. Girard.
Who
Ms.
seconded
Pellegrini,
that?
second. Ms. Pellegrini. Any discussion? All accept. Unanimous.
Thank you.
All right. Superintendent's report, Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, so I just wanted to highlight, as we approach the, Thanksgiving holiday, I just want to take the opportunity to thank all of our staff. I continue to just marvel at their energy, their enthusiasm, their high standards, and their willingness to always do what's best for kids. It's been a really challenging year, working as an educator through a pandemic, and our teachers show up every day, they do what's best for kids, and they do so with such grace. They embrace those challenges. They're not easy. So as we head into the Thanksgiving holiday, I want to thank them publicly, acknowledge all the service. I also had the opportunity on November 11th to attend the Veterans Day ceremony. And while this is a public event designed to honor our men and women that serve or have served our country, I was really impressed with the fact that so many of our students are involved in this community program. We had, boys and girls in the Scouts. We had our ROTC students from Pinkerton. We had the winners of the Patriots Pen Essay Contest. We had the Hampstead Middle School Chorus. This is a community event, but it really showcased a lot of our students. And I was very impressed, and I want to take the opportunity to thank Lieutenant Colonel Howie Stedman for organizing this event and working with the school. And I also look forward to future opportunities where the school and the community's veterans can work together. I also just want to make another plug. As folks are aware, we're engaged in the strategic planning process. We have sent out a survey tool via Thought Exchange. We continue to collect responses. We're going to keep that survey open for an additional amount of time. I'm really looking to get more community voices, individuals specifically who don't have children. As a reminder, these are your schools. You make a tremendous investment in them. They're the pride of the community. We want to hear from you in terms of the direction the school is going. So right now you can participate in that survey by going to our website. I also next week will be putting flyers around town that will have a QR code that will allow individuals to take the survey, and will also provide an opportunity for folks to come into the SAU if technology is not their thing. And then I did want to highlight, and Aaron talked about it. You know, we held a clinic last Tuesday for our 5 to 12-year-olds. We were able to vaccinate approximately 175 students. It was a tremendous success. I want to thank all of the volunteers who gave up their time. I also want to thank the HHS. I also want to really thank our emergency services in town, our police and our fire department, just their willingness to help to work with us, to come to provide support for this event. There's no way we would not have been able to pull this off if it wasn't for them. And it's just another example of the collaboration. You know, when the various agencies in town work together, it's really for the benefit of everybody. Also, last Thursday, we held a vaccination clinic at the middle school for our staff. We were able to provide booster vaccinations for 90 staff members. And again, I want to thank the Hempstead Fire Department and also the Department of Health and Human Services. And then lastly, I just wanted to, talk a little bit briefly about a couple of questions that I've been getting. The first question that has come up is, now that the vaccination is available for 5 to 12-year-olds, when will we begin to relax and pull back on our COVID protocols? And while, the vaccination is available for 5 to 12-year-olds, our numbers in school were trending in the wrong direction. If you go on the district website, you'll see that in the month of September, we had 6 cases. In the month of October, we had 6. November, we've had 27 cases. I don't think it's appropriate, and it would not be my recommendation at this time, that we engage in a conversation about relaxing protocols. I continue to be concerned about the number of cases in our school. This is a trend that we're seeing across the state, but it's having an impact on our Hampstead students, and right now is not the time for us to talk about relaxing those protocols. We need to watch the numbers, and when the numbers begin to go down, it'd be logical to have that conversation. Another question that people have asked is they've asked about close contacts. And if folks go, I sent an email on Sunday night where I outlined the definition of close contacts that the Department of Health and Human Services has put out and what the Hampstead schools follow. Because parents oftentimes, when you get that phone call or you get that email, it really raises people's anxiety. And I would ask people to go back. I know you get a lot of emails, but this is an important one for folks to take a look at, for you to understand the process that we use when we do contact tracing and identify close contacts. A question that's come up often is, why do I sometimes get a phone call, and why do I sometimes get an email or I get an automated message? And honestly, it comes down to the fact that it is typically our building principal or our assistant principal who's doing the contact tracing. If we identify a small population of students who are close contacts, it's very easy for us to make the phone calls. Sometimes we have whole classes, or we can have a segment of a grade that is a close contact. We just don't have the resources to make individual phone calls if we have 30 kids or 50 kids that are identified as a close contact. I know that creates some inconsistencies and it concerns parents, but I have to balance the fact that some of our administrators are at school really late at night making phone calls. I would encourage folks, if you have questions about any of our protocols, to please feel free to either call the building administrators or to call me directly. I'd be happy to have a conversation. And with that said, that's my superintendent report, and I welcome any questions that the board might have.
Just it's good to hear your voice, and I'm glad you're feeling better. And I appreciate everyone at the SAU office with what's gone on there to while working remotely, and they're supporting everything, continuing to do the good work you're doing. So appreciate you and everybody at the SAU office.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, David, too, I also appreciate the number of community members and parents and staff who've reached out to me. Last week was rough, and I do appreciate all of the positive sentiment. We'll reopen the SAU office on Monday. I'm available working remotely. I'm willing to take parent phone calls anytime. So please, just because the office isn't open doesn't mean that we're not working, and here to answer any questions or be of service in any way that we can.
All right. Any other business, old business? All right. At this time, we are going to be looking to make a motion to go into non-public. I do believe we'll be taking a vote, so we would be coming out of non-public. So I gotta get the numbers. I gotta get this out. One moment. I gotta get the. Where is it? Which one's the contract? Should have got this before. Apologize. So I'm going to make a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91A3 2C and no,
Sorry.
L.
L.
So under, and I just had it, to C, matters which is discussed in public would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person, as well as L, consideration of legal advice provided by legal counsel. Are you looking for someone? Okay. Melissa, would you mind taking the roll call?
Mr. Giard?
Yes.
Ms. Malcolm?
Yes.
Mrs. Parnell?
Yes.
Mrs. Pellegrini?
Yes.
And Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. It's 8:32.
All right. Thank you, Jason. All right, we are back from non-public, and I'll be looking for a motion about the non-public we just had.
I'll make the motion to seal the non-public meeting minutes of November 23rd for the reason that divulgence of the information likely would affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the public body itself.
All right, look for a second.
Second.
All right, Melissa, if you wouldn't mind taking the roll call.
Mr. Giard?
Yes.
Ms. Malcolm?
Yes.
Mrs. Pellegrini?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Parnell?
Yes.
And I'm just going to repeat Mr. Giard because my microphone wasn't on.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
All right, and so we will now conclude the meeting, and happy Thanksgiving to the town of Hampstead and anybody watching, and see you on the 14th.